Dr. Kira Vex had seen plenty of impossible things in her 30 cycles as a xenobiologist aboard the research vessel Meridian. She'd watched gas-based lifeforms dance through nebulae, catalogued sentient crystals that sang opera, and once had a very awkward conversation with a hive mind that insisted on speaking only in mathematical equations. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared her for the human sitting in her medical bay with a compound fracture that should have had him screaming for his mother. Instead, Jake Morrison was cracking jokes. "So, Doc," he said, his voice unnaturally steady for someone whose radius bone was currently doing its best impression of a broken twig, on a scale of 1 to completely screwed, "how's my arm looking?" Kira's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a nervous habit she'd developed whenever faced with human illogic. "Mr. Morrison, you have a grade 3 open fracture. The bone has pierced your skin in 2 places. You should be experiencing excruciating pain right now." "Oh, I am," Jake replied cheerfully, as if discussing the weather on a pleasant vacation planet. "Trust me, this hurts like hell, but panicking never fixed anything, did it?" The human's casual attitude toward what should have been a medical emergency made Kira's secondary heart skip a beat. She'd read the files on human pain tolerance, of course. Every xenobiologist worth their salt knew about the infamous human stubbornness factor. But reading about it and witnessing it firsthand were 2 entirely different experiences. "I need to set this bone immediately," she said, reaching for her medical scanner. "The procedure will be unpleasant." "Unpleasant?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "Doc, I once had to reset my own dislocated shoulder while being chased by a pack of Regelian sand wolves. This is just Tuesday for me." Kira paused, scanner halfway to Jake's arm. "You reset your own shoulder while running?" "Well, stumbling really. The shoulder made running a bit tricky." Jake's grin was absolutely infuriating in its casualness. "Look, Doc, I appreciate the concern, but humans are pretty good at the whole dealing with broken stuff thing. It's kind of our specialty." The Nexari doctor had to admit she was curious despite herself. Human resilience was legendary throughout the galaxy, but she'd always assumed the stories were exaggerated. Space legends had a way of growing in the telling. Yet here was a human treating a serious injury like a minor inconvenience. "Very well," she said, activating her bone restructuring field. "This will take approximately 15 minutes. I'll need you to remain perfectly still." 15 minutes? Jake looked genuinely surprised. "Seriously? That's it?" Kira's confusion must have shown on her scaled features because Jake quickly elaborated. "Sorry, Doc. It's just that on Earth, setting a bone like this would take hours of surgery, pins, plates, months of recovery time. Your tech is incredible." "This is standard procedure," Kira replied, though she felt a strange sense of pride at the compliment. "The field will realign your bone structure and accelerate cellular regeneration. Most species require significant sedation for the process. Most species," Jake noted with amusement, "probably aren't stupid enough to fall off a cargo loader in the first place." The next few minutes passed in relative silence, broken only by the soft humming of medical equipment and Jake's occasional wisecracks about the ship's artificial gravity settings. Kira found herself studying the human with growing fascination. His vital signs showed clear indicators of pain, stress, and physical trauma, yet his behavior remained remarkably stable. "Mr. Morrison," she said eventually, "may I ask you something?" "Shoot, Doc." "Your species' approach to injury, it's quite unusual. Most beings in your condition would be in shock." Jake considered this for a moment. "I guess we just figure that stuff happens, you know. You can either waste time freaking out about it, or you can fix the problem and move on. Freaking out doesn't make the bone heal any faster. But the pain—" "Yeah, it sucks," Jake admitted. "But pain is just information, right? It's telling me something's wrong, which I already knew. Once I know what's broken, the pain's just noise." Kira had to admit there was a certain logic to this philosophy, even if it seemed completely insane by galactic standards. Most civilized species had evolved past the need for such primitive coping mechanisms. The bone restructuring field completed its work with a soft chime. Kira deactivated the equipment and ran her scanner over Jake's arm one final time. The readings were perfect, bone density optimal, cellular regeneration proceeding normally. There, she said with satisfaction. Complete structural integrity restored. You should avoid heavy lifting for the next few days, but otherwise... She trailed off as Jake stood up and immediately began flexing his newly healed arm, testing its range of motion with casual efficiency. Feels good as new, he said, rotating his wrist experimentally. Your people really know their stuff, Doc. Thanks. Mr. Morrison, I must insist that you... Jake wasn't listening. He'd moved to the medical bay's main workstation and was examining one of Kira's bone density scanners with obvious interest. This is fascinating tech, he said, picking up the device. The quantum resonance field must be calibrated to specific molecular frequencies. Is this running on crystallized tachyon matrices? Kira blinked again, slower this time. You understand xenobiological scanning technology? A bit. I'm actually a mechanical engineer back home. I got drafted into cargo duty because the ship was short-staffed. Jake set down the scanner carefully. But I've always been curious about how alien tech works. Your medical equipment is at least 3 generations ahead of anything we've got. 3 generations? Kira couldn't hide her surprise. Human medical technology is considered quite primitive by galactic standards. Primitive, maybe, but effective in its own way. Jake's expression turned thoughtful. We might not have fancy energy fields and instant healing, but we've gotten pretty good at the whole making do with what we have thing. Before Kira could respond, the ship's emergency klaxon began blaring. Red warning lights bathed the medical bay in an ominous glow as Captain Thorne's voice crackled over the comm system. All hands to emergency stations. We have a catastrophic failure in the main drive coupling. All available personnel report to engineering immediately. Jake was already moving toward the door before the announcement finished. Duty calls, Doc. Thanks again for the patch job. Wait, Kira called after him. You just had major bone reconstruction. You shouldn't be. Doc, Jake said, pausing in the doorway with that infuriating human grin, you just told me I'm good as new. If there's an emergency, I'm not sitting around in sick bay while the ship falls apart. And with that he was gone, leaving Kira staring at the empty doorway and wondering what she'd gotten herself into by accepting a posting on a ship with a human crew member. The emergency klaxon continued its urgent wailing as she sealed up her medical equipment. Through the ship's hull she could feel the subtle vibrations of system failures cascading through the Meridian's superstructure. Whatever had gone wrong in engineering, it was serious. 20 minutes later, Kira found herself in the ship's main engineering section, supposedly there to provide medical support, but mostly just trying to stay out of the way. The massive drive coupling chamber was a maze of twisted metal and sparking conduits, filled with the acrid smell of burned circuitry and the ominous groaning of overstressed hull plating. Chief Engineer Rask, a burly Corvan with cybernetic implants covering half his skull, he was directing repair teams with the controlled desperation of someone who knew exactly how bad the situation was. The primary coupling has completely sheared, he was saying to Captain Thorne. Secondary systems are failing across the board. At current degradation rates, we have maybe 6 hours before total propulsion failure. Options? The captain asked tersely. We need to manually realign the coupling interface, but it means sending someone into the drive chamber while the system is still partially active. The radiation exposure alone. I'll do it. Everyone turned to see Jake Morrison stepping forward, still wearing his cargo loading coveralls and looking completely unconcerned about the prospect of crawling into a radioactive death trap. Absolutely not, Captain Thorne said immediately. Morrison, you're not even engineering crew. With respect, Captain, I'm the smallest person here who actually understands the coupling system. Rask and his team are too big to fit through the access conduits, and anyone else would need hours of briefing just to understand what they're looking at. Chief Rask's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Jake. The radiation levels in there will kill most species in under 10 minutes. Good thing I'm not most species, Jake replied with that same casual confidence that had unnerved Kira in the medical bay. Humans have a pretty high radiation tolerance compared to galactic standard. Plus, someone's got to fix this thing, and sitting around debating isn't making the problem go away. Captain Thorne looked like she wanted to argue, but the groaning of overstressed hull plating made the decision for her. Rask, get him whatever protection you can. Morrison, you have exactly 8 minutes before I'm pulling you out of there, regardless of the job status. 8 minutes should be plenty, Jake said, already moving toward the radiation suits. I just need to realign the coupling interface and lock it down. Simple mechanical work. As Jake suited up, Kira found herself moving closer to Rask. Chief, she said quietly, what are his actual chances in there? The Korvan's expression was grim. Honestly, even with the best radiation shielding we have, he's looking at potentially fatal exposure levels. Most species would be unconscious in minutes. But humans are tough, Rask admitted reluctantly. Tougher than they have any right to be. But this is beyond tough, Doc. This is just crazy. Jake finished sealing his radiation suit and picked up a portable coupling alignment tool that looked absurdly oversized in his hands. All right, folks, wish me luck. I'll have this fixed in no time. He disappeared into the access tunnel with the kind of casual confidence usually reserved for routine maintenance tasks, not suicidal repair missions. The engineering crew watched their sensors in tense silence as Jake's suit beacon moved deeper into the drive chamber. Radiation levels at 40% of lethal threshold, one of the technicians reported. Coupling interface visual confirmed, Jake's voice crackled over the comm. Yeah, I see the problem. The alignment servo is completely fried. I'm going to have to do this manually. Morrison, manual realignment requires direct contact with the coupling mechanism, Rask warned. Your suit won't protect you from that kind of exposure. Copy that, Chief. Starting realignment now. The next 5 minutes were the longest of Kira's life. The radiation readings climbed steadily as Jake worked his way through the coupling repair, his vital signs displaying on her medical scanner. Heart rate elevated but stable, neural activity normal, cellular degradation within acceptable parameters. Actually, that last reading couldn't be right. Kira recalibrated her scanner and checked again. Jake's cellular integrity readings were not just within acceptable parameters, they were actually improving. That was impossible. No known species could not only survive that level of radiation exposure but actually benefit from it. Coupling realignment complete, Jake's voice announced cheerfully. Locking down the interface now. Should be good to go in about 30 seconds. Morrison, get out of there now, Captain Thorne ordered. Your radiation exposure is already at dangerous levels. Almost done, Captain. Just need to, there we go. Coupling interface locked and secured. System should be stable now. The ship's vibrations immediately smoothed out as the repaired coupling took hold. Emergency lighting switched back to normal, and the constant background hum of failing systems faded away. Jake emerged from the access tunnel looking completely unaffected by his brush with lethal radiation. He pulled off his helmet and ran a hand through his hair, grinning at the assembled crew. Well, that was fun, he said. Nothing like a little radiation exposure to get the blood pumping. Kira stared at her medical scanner in disbelief. Not only were Jake's vital signs completely normal, but his cellular regeneration rates had actually accelerated during the repair work. The radiation that should have killed him had somehow enhanced his body's natural healing processes. Morrison, she said slowly, I need you to return to the medical bay for a full scan. Or, come on, Doc, I feel fine. Better than fine, actually. That's exactly what concerns me. As they made their way back to the medical bay, Kira's mind raced with the implications of what she'd witnessed. First the casual attitude toward serious injury, then the impossible pain tolerance, and now this apparent immunity to radiation poisoning. What exactly were humans capable of? And more importantly, what had they not told the galactic community about their species' true nature? The medical bay's comprehensive scanners confirmed what Kira's portable unit had detected. Not only had Jake suffered no lasting damage from his radiation exposure, but every system in his body was actually functioning better than before. Bone density increased, muscle fiber efficiency improved, neural conductivity enhanced. "This is impossible," she muttered, running the scans for the third time. "What's impossible?" Jake asked from the examination table. "Your cellular structure has been enhanced by the radiation exposure. Most species would be dead or dying right now. You appear to have been upgraded." Jake's expression shifted, becoming more serious than she'd seen him since the accident. "Upgraded. That's an interesting way to put it. Mr. Morrison, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is this normal for humans?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, seeming to weigh his options. Finally, he sighed and looked directly at her with those unsettlingly direct human eyes. "Doc," he said quietly, "what do you know about human evolution?" "The standard galactic records indicate that humans evolved on a relatively peaceful world with minimal environmental pressures." Jake's laugh was short and humorless. "Peaceful, Doc. Earth is a death world by any reasonable galactic standard. We evolved in constant competition with everything that wanted to kill us. The ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, diseases, natural disasters, you name it, we survived it. But the records? The records are what we wanted people to think," Jake said simply. "Humans learned a long time ago that other species get nervous when they realize what we're actually capable of. So we play down our abilities, act like we're just another species trying to get by." Kira felt a chill run down her spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that when humans break, we don't just heal, we upgrade. Every injury, every exposure, every challenge makes us stronger. It's how we survived on a planet that kept trying to kill us for millions of years." Jake stood up from the examination table and rolled his shoulder, the same shoulder that had been broken just hours earlier. The movement was fluid, perfect, stronger than before. "That radiation didn't hurt me, Doc. It just gave my body new information to work with. New ways to improve. That's what humans do. We adapt." Kira struggled to process what she was hearing. "This changes everything. If humans can adapt to any environment, overcome any challenge." "Yeah," Jake said softly. "It kind of does change everything, doesn't it?" The silence in the medical bay stretched between them like a taut wire. Dr. Kira Vex stared at Jake Morrison, her mind frantically trying to reconcile everything she thought she knew about human physiology with the impossible data scrolling across her screens. "You're telling me," she said slowly, "that your entire species has been deliberately misrepresenting your capabilities to the galactic community." Jake rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking uncomfortable. "Look, Doc, it's not like we had a choice. You know what happens to species that other civilizations consider threatening. They get contained, isolated, or worse. Humans learned early that sometimes survival means letting people underestimate you." But the implications, Kira's voice trailed off as the full scope of what Jake was revealing hit her. "How many other humans are aboard this ship? Just me on this run. But there are humans throughout the galaxy now, working cargo ships, research vessels, even diplomatic missions." Jake's expression grew serious, all of them carrying the same secret. Before Kira could respond, her communication panel chimed with an incoming priority message. Captain Thorne's image appeared on the screen, her expression grim. "Dr. Vex, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up a hegemony patrol squadron heading our way. 3 heavy cruisers, estimated arrival in 4 hours." Kira's primary heart skipped a beat. The hegemony had been hunting research vessels like theirs for months, claiming that unauthorized alien contact violated their territorial agreements. In reality, everyone knew they were trying to monopolize access to newly discovered technologies. "Captain, our current position should be well outside hegemony space," Kira protested. Apparently they disagree. They're demanding we submit to immediate boarding and inspection. "If they find our research data," Thorne's expression darkened. "Kira, we both know what the hegemony does with technological discoveries. They weaponize everything." Jake stepped closer to the communication panel. "Captain, what's our tactical situation?" "Morrison, this isn't your concern. Your civilian cargo crew." "With respect, Captain, if we're about to be boarded by hostile forces, it becomes everyone's concern." Jake's voice carried a new edge that Kira hadn't heard before. "What are we dealing with?" Captain Thorne hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. 3 hegemony heavy cruisers, each carrying approximately 200 troops. Our shields won't hold against concentrated fire from all 3 ships. We have maybe a dozen security personnel aboard. Weapons, personal sidearms, and a couple of plasma rifles. Nothing that would be effective against hegemony battle armor. Jake was quiet for a moment, and Kira could almost see his mind working through the tactical problem. "Captain, how many crew members do we have total?" 43, including yourself. "Any other humans?" "You're the only one." "Morrison, what are you thinking?" Jake looked directly at Kira, his expression apologetic. "Doc, I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But if the hegemony gets their hands on your research, a lot of innocent people are going to die." "Jake, what are you planning?" Kira asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. "Captain," Jake said, turning back to the communication panel, "I need you to trust me. When the hegemony ships arrive, let them board. Don't resist." "Morrison, that's suicide. The moment they set foot on this ship, they'll find exactly what they expect to find. A lightly defended research vessel with scared scientists and minimal security." Jake's smile was sharp now, predatory in a way that made Kira's skin crawl. "What they won't expect is that one of those scared scientists isn't quite what he appears to be." Captain Thorne's eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Morrison, you can't be serious. You're talking about taking on 200 hegemony troops by yourself." "Not by myself," Jake corrected. "I'll have the element of surprise. And Doc here is going to help me." "I am." Kira squeaked. "You understand human physiology better than anyone else on this ship now. If I'm going to do this, I need someone who can monitor my vitals and make sure I don't push too far beyond safe limits." "Safe limits?" Kira's voice rose an octave. "Jake, there are no safe limits for what you're suggesting. Even if humans can adapt and upgrade, you're still talking about impossible odds. Doc, remember what I told you about human evolution? We didn't become the dominant species on Earth by playing it safe. We became dominant by doing whatever it took to survive." Over the next 3 hours, Jake's transformation was unlike anything Kira had ever witnessed. Using controlled exposure to various stresses in the medical bay, he systematically pushed his body beyond normal human limits. Increased gravity to enhance bone density and muscle fiber strength. He controlled electrical currents to improve neural conductivity. Targeted radiation exposure to boost cellular regeneration rates. Each exposure should have been debilitating or even fatal. Instead, Jake's body absorbed each challenge and emerged stronger. His reflexes became superhuman. His strength increased to levels that bent the testing equipment. His sensory acuity sharpened until he could hear conversations 3 decks away. "This is incredible," Kira whispered, watching the readouts. "Your muscle efficiency has increased by 400%. Your neural processing speed is off the charts. How is this possible?" "Controlled evolution," Jake explained, flexing his hands experimentally. "Humans learned to trigger our adaptive responses deliberately. Every stress, every challenge becomes fuel for improvement. It's why we survived when everything else on Earth wanted us dead. But the energy requirements alone, that's the beautiful part, Doc. Each upgrade makes the next one more efficient." We don't just adapt, we learn how to adapt better. Jake stood up from the examination table, moving with fluid grace that seemed almost supernatural. Ready or not, it's showtime. The hegemony ships arrived exactly on schedule, their massive forms blotting out the stars as they surrounded the meridian. Captain Thorne's voice echoed through the ship's corridors as she announced the boarding procedures. All crew members report to designated safe zones. Offer no resistance to hegemony forces. This is not a drill. Jake positioned himself in the ship's main cargo bay, hidden among the shipping containers. Kira monitored his vitals from the medical bay, watching in fascination as his body continued to optimize itself in preparation for combat. Boarding parties have docked, came the report over the comm. Approximately 50 troops per team, spreading throughout the ship. The first hegemony soldiers to enter the cargo bay moved with the confident precision of an elite military unit. Their power armor was state-of-the-art, their weapons capable of cutting through starship hull plating. They had every reason to feel invincible. That confidence lasted exactly 37 seconds. Jake emerged from concealment like a force of nature. The first soldier never saw him coming. One moment the hegemony trooper was scanning the cargo containers with his weapon raised, the next he was unconscious on the deck with his armor crumpled like paper. The second soldier managed to turn around before Jake's enhanced reflexes put him down. The third actually got a shot off, a plasma bolt that should have vaporized anything it touched. Jake simply wasn't there when it arrived. From the medical bay, Kira watched Jake's vitals spike as his body processed the combat stress. Heart rate elevated but controlled, adrenaline levels off the charts, muscle efficiency continuing to improve in real time. He's still upgrading, she whispered to herself. Even during combat, his body is learning and adapting. The hegemony troops tried to adapt their tactics, but they were fighting an opponent who literally became stronger and faster with each engagement. What had started as a confident boarding operation rapidly devolved into chaos as reports of impossible resistance flooded their communication channels. Squad 7 is down. Repeat, Squad 7 is down. Something took out our entire advance team in Cargo Bay 3. I need reinforcements in engineering. We're being picked off by I don't know what this thing is. Jake moved through the ship like a ghost, using his enhanced senses to track enemy positions and his upgraded physiology to strike with devastating precision. He wasn't just fighting the hegemony troops, he was systematically dismantling their entire operation. Multiple casualties in Medical Bay 2. Whatever's doing this, it's not showing up on our scanners. Fall back to defensive positions. Secure the bridge. But there were no safe positions. Jake had become something beyond their experience, beyond their training. Every failed attempt to stop him only provided new data for his body to process, new improvements to implement. Commander Voss, leading the hegemony boarding operation, found himself trapped on the bridge with the last dozen members of his assault force. The ship's corridors had become a nightmare maze where his soldiers vanished one by one, taken down by an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. "Sir," one of his lieutenants reported, "we've lost contact with all other teams. Whatever's on this ship, it's picked off over 180 troops." "That's impossible," Voss snarled. The intelligence reports indicated minimal resistance. A few scientists and cargo handlers. "Maybe the intelligence was wrong, sir." The bridge doors suddenly opened with a soft hiss. Jake Morrison walked in casually, still wearing his cargo crew coveralls, looking completely unthreatened by the dozen plasma rifles aimed at his chest. "Gentlemen," he said politely, "I think we need to talk." "Fire," Commander Voss shouted. The plasma bolts that should have reduced Jake to atoms instead passed harmlessly through empty air. He moved between the energy beams like he was dancing, reaching the first soldier before anyone could react. The hegemony trooper's armor crumpled under Jake's enhanced strength. The remaining soldiers tried to adjust their aim, but Jake was already among them. Enhanced reflexes allowed him to predict their movements, upgraded muscle fibers provided impossible speed and power. In less than 10 seconds, the bridge was silent except for the soft hum of ship systems. Commander Voss found himself flat on his back, staring up at Jake Morrison with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "Commander," Jake said conversationally, "you just learned something that most species in the galaxy don't know. Humans don't break. We upgrade." He reached down and easily lifted the armored officer to his feet. "Now you're going to contact your ships and tell them that this boarding operation was a terrible mistake." "You can't, my superiors will never." "But, Commander, take a look around. Your entire assault force has been neutralized by one human cargo worker. Do you really want to explain to your superiors how that happened? Or would you prefer to report that the research vessel was clean and you're withdrawing to avoid an unfortunate diplomatic incident?" From the medical bay, Kira watched Jake's vital signs finally begin to stabilize. The sustained combat had pushed his adaptive capabilities to incredible heights, but now that the immediate threat was over, his body was consolidating the improvements. 20 minutes later, the hegemony ships were jumping away at maximum velocity, their commanders convinced that the Meridian posed no threat to anyone. Captain Thorne stood on the bridge, staring at Jake with an expression somewhere between gratitude and terror. "Morrison," she said slowly, "remind me never to get on your bad side." "Captain, with respect, you never had anything to worry about. Humans protect their friends." Jake's easy smile was back, the predatory edge completely gone. "We just get a little creative about how we do it." Dr. Kira Vex completed her final scans of Jake's physiology, documenting changes that would revolutionize xenobiological understanding if they were ever made public. Which, she was beginning to understand, they never would be. "Your cellular structure has stabilized at approximately 6 times baseline human normal," she reported. "Bone density, muscle efficiency, neural conductivity, sensory acuity, all enhanced beyond anything in the galactic medical databases. And it'll fade back to normal levels over the next few weeks," Jake added. "Unless I need to upgrade again." "This explains so much about human behavior," Kira mused. "Your species' willingness to take risks, your casual attitude toward danger, your apparent immunity to despair. When you know that every challenge makes you stronger, you stop being afraid of challenges," Jake agreed. "It's probably why humans spread through the galaxy so fast. We see problems as opportunities. But the implications for galactic society have to stay secret," Jake said firmly. "Doc, you've seen what humans can do when we're pushed. Can you imagine what would happen if every species in the galaxy knew? The fear, the attempts at preemptive strikes, the demands for human quarantine." Kira considered this soberly. She'd witnessed Jake casually defeat an entire military assault force. If humans could all potentially reach those levels of capability, the balance of power would shift overnight, she admitted. "Exactly. And that wouldn't be good for anyone, humans included. We prefer cooperation to conquest. But cooperation requires trust, and trust requires that people don't see you as an existential threat. So humans will continue to pretend to be just another species struggling to survive." Jake's smile was gentle now, almost sad. "Doc, we're not pretending. We are just another species struggling to survive. We just happen to be really, really good at it." 3 weeks later, the Meridian completed its research mission and returned to Starbase 7. Dr. Kira Vex submitted her official reports, carefully edited to remove any mention of human adaptive capabilities. As far as the galactic community would know, the hegemony boarding attempt had been thwarted by clever tactics and superior technology. Jake Morrison returned to his duties as cargo crew, just another human trying to make an honest living in the vast galaxy. His physiology had returned to baseline normal, indistinguishable from any other member of his species. But Kira knew the truth now. She understood that every human walking through the Starbase corridors carried within them the potential for incredible transformation. They were living weapons disguised as peaceful traders, explorers, and workers. And perhaps most remarkably of all, they had chosen to use that potential not for conquest but for protection. They had become the galaxy's secret guardians, powerful enough to face any threat, humble enough to let others take the credit. As she watched Jake disappear into the crowd of travelers and merchants, Dr. Kira Vex finally understood why humans had spread so successfully throughout the stars. It wasn't because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most technologically advanced. It was because when the universe tried to break them, they simply became unbreakable. And they did it with a smile and a joke, making it look easy every step of the way. The galaxy was far safer than it knew, protected by a species that had turned adaptation into an art form. Humans didn't just survive in a hostile universe. They thrived. And when they broke, they upgraded.